The English Civil War, a brutal conflict that tore apart families and divided a nation, was a defining moment in British history. This war was not just a struggle for political power, but also a battle over the soul of England. In this video, we'll explore what led to this devastating war, the key battles that shaped its course, the rise of Oliver Cromwell, and life in England under his rule. We'll also look at how the monarchy was restored and the long-term impact of the conflict. The seeds of the English Civil War were sown during the reign of King Charles I. His belief in the divine right of kings, coupled with his refusal to work with Parliament, led to growing tensions. Charles's attempts to rule without Parliament, his imposition of unpopular taxes, and his religious policies alienated both Puritans and Anglicans alike. In 1628, Parliament attempted to curb the king's power by presenting the Petition of Right, which sought to limit Charles's ability to tax without parliamentary consent and to imprison people without trial. Although Charles initially agreed, he soon disregarded it, further straining relations between the monarchy and Parliament. Frustrated with Parliament's demands, Charles decided to rule without them, beginning what is known as the 11 Years' Tyranny. During this period, he raised funds through controversial methods such as ship money and enforced religious uniformity, leading to widespread discontent. Charles's attempt to impose Anglican practices on the Scottish Church led to the Bishops' Wars, which further depleted the royal coffers. Desperate for money, Charles was forced to call Parliament in 1640, but the Long Parliament that assembled was determined to curtail his power. In 1641, Parliament passed the Grand Remonstrance, a list of grievances against the king, which deepened the divide. Charles's failed attempt to arrest 5 leading members of Parliament in January 1642 was the final straw, pushing the country towards civil war. On August 22, 1642, King Charles I raised the royal standard at Nottingham, signalling the start of the English Civil War. England was now split between those who supported the king, known as Royalists or Cavaliers, and those who sided with Parliament, known as Parliamentarians or Roundheads. The first major battle of the war took place at Edgehill in October 1642. Both sides claimed victory, but the inconclusive outcome demonstrated that this would not be a quick or easy conflict. The war dragged on, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. Shortly after, the Parliamentarians halted the Royalist advance on London at the Battle of Turnham Green. Though the battle was not a large-scale conflict, it was significant as it prevented Charles from capturing the capital, which remained in Parliament's hands. In the summer of 1643, King Charles laid siege to Gloucester, a key parliamentarian stronghold. However, the city's defenders, bolstered by reinforcements, managed to hold out, dealing a blow to royalist hopes of a quick victory. The tide began to turn in favour of Parliament in 1644, with the decisive Battle of Marston Moor. Here, the combined forces of Parliament and the Scottish Covenanters dealt a crushing blow to the Royalists, securing control of the north of England. Oliver Cromwell emerged as a key figure during this battle, leading his cavalry, the Ironsides, to victory. His leadership and military acumen would prove crucial in the coming years. In 1645, Parliament reorganised its forces into the new model army, a disciplined and professional fighting force. This army, led by Sir Thomas Fairfax and Oliver Cromwell, would become the backbone of the parliamentarian war effort. The new model army's effectiveness was demonstrated at the Battle of Naseby in June 1645, where they delivered a crushing defeat to the Royalist forces. This battle marked the beginning of the end for King Charles I's cause. After Naseby, the Royalists were on the defensive, and in 1646, King Charles I was captured. The war was effectively over, but the country's troubles were far from finished. In 1649, after lengthy negotiations and a second civil war, Charles was put on trial for treason. The trial was unprecedented, as no English king had ever been tried by his own subjects. Despite his defiance, Charles was found guilty and sentenced to death. On January 30th, 1649, King Charles I was executed outside the banqueting house in Whitehall. His death shocked the nation and sent ripples across Europe. England was now a republic, a commonwealth led by Oliver Cromwell and his supporters. Following the king's execution, England was declared a commonwealth, with Oliver Cromwell eventually taking the title of Lord Protector in 1653. Under Cromwell's rule, England underwent significant changes both politically and socially. Cromwell's rule was heavily influenced by Puritan values. Theatres were closed, Christmas celebrations were banned, and strict moral codes were enforced. Life in Cromwellian England was marked by austerity and a focus on religious observance, reflecting the Puritans' desire to create a godly society. One of the most notable changes was the banning of Christmas celebrations, which the Puritans viewed as pagan and unbiblical. This decision was deeply unpopular, particularly among the common people, who resented the loss of their traditional festivities. Despite his initial commitment to republican principles, Cromwell became increasingly frustrated with the Rump Parliament's inefficiency and corruption. In 1653, he forcibly dissolved it, declaring, "You have sat too long for any good you have been doing." Cromwell's rule was also marked by brutal military campaigns, particularly in Ireland. His campaign there was intended to suppress royalist support and Catholic resistance, but it resulted in widespread devastation and loss of life, leaving a lasting legacy of bitterness. In Cromwellian England, the Church of England was replaced by a more Presbyterian-style church structure, and religious tolerance was extended to some Protestant sects. However, Catholics and Anglicans faced persecution, as the government sought to enforce strict Puritan religious practices. Despite the restrictions, life continued in Cromwellian England. Markets bustled with activity, trade flourished, and the country experienced a degree of stability, though it came at the cost of personal freedoms and traditional customs. In 1658, Oliver Cromwell died, leaving England without its strong leader. His son, Richard Cromwell, succeeded him as Lord Protector, but he lacked his father's authority and military prowess. The country soon descended into political chaos. Richard Cromwell's brief rule, known as the Rule of the Saints, was marked by instability and factionalism. In 1659, the Protectorate collapsed, and England was once again plunged into political turmoil with no clear leadership. Amidst the chaos, General George Monk, a key military figure, marched his troops into London. Monk, who had remained neutral during the conflict, saw an opportunity to restore order and initiated negotiations to bring back the monarchy. In May 1660, Charles II was restored to the throne, marking the end of the Commonwealth and the beginning of the Restoration period. His return was met with widespread celebration, as many hoped for a return to normalcy after years of turmoil. With the return of the monarchy, England experienced a cultural revival. Theatres reopened, festivals were celebrated once again, and the strict moral codes of the Cromwellian era were relaxed. The Restoration brought a sense of relief and exuberance to the country. The reopening of theatres symbolised the end of Puritan repression. The Restoration period saw a flourishing of the arts, with playwrights like William Wycherley and Aphra Behn entertaining audiences with their witty and often bawdy comedies. King Charles II's court was known for its opulence and indulgence. The king himself was a patron of the arts and sciences, and his court became a centre of cultural and intellectual activity. However, his reign was not without challenges. Despite the initial optimism of the Restoration, England faced significant challenges during Charles II's reign. In 1665, the country was struck by the Great Plague, which decimated the population and left a lasting impact on the nation. The following year, London was devastated by the Great Fire, which destroyed much of the medieval city. Despite the destruction, the fire provided an opportunity to rebuild the city in a more modern and organised manner. The rebuilding of London symbolised the resilience of the English people. Under the guidance of architects like Sir Christopher Wren, the city was transformed, with landmarks such as St. Paul's Cathedral rising from the ashes. The English Civil War and the events that followed were a tumultuous chapter in the nation's history. The conflict brought about profound changes, from the temporary abolition of the monarchy to the rise of a republic, and ultimately, the restoration of the crown. It reshaped the relationship between the monarchy and Parliament, laying the foundations for the constitutional monarchy that exists today. The legacy of this period can still be felt, as it marked the beginning of a more modern and democratic England. As we reflect on this turbulent time, it's clear that the struggles and sacrifices of those who lived through the English Civil War have left an indelible mark on the nation's identity. The story of this conflict is not just one of battles and power struggles, but of a people's enduring quest for justice, liberty, and stability. Thank you for watching. We hope you have enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe for more history content.